Hello everyone, and welcome back to another top 5 video. The second to last of my top 5. With the next one, we will get your votes in once we go into the logistics. I jumped over the artillery when I went to infantry, but we're gonna cover my top 5 artillery units now. If you have missed the others, you can find them in the playlist that is linked down below. All the top 5 videos for air, helicopter, AA, recon, and so on. And yeah, now we jump into my top 5 artillery pieces. As I said, it's my individual list, so yours might differ. Let me know down below what you think are the top artillery pieces in the game, and let's jump right in here. And on number 5, we have the Feldhaubitze 155/1, which is a really good piece of equipment. It's the best towed artillery piece, and it's the only towed artillery piece on the list. And yeah, it's a late 60s design, as the Germans needed a follow-up to the M114 howitzers, which got a bit outdated after World War II. And this is a more modern design of a Feldhaubitze with better loading, quick fire, good range, good stability. And it got designed in the late 60s, started production in the early 70s, still in use to today with the Germans, with the Italians, the British. Japanese produced a lot of them, even more than any other nation. And Ukraine got a couple of them, so they are in active service at the moment. And a couple of Italian ones got brought over there. It's a pretty good one, and it's also really nice in-game. The qualities it has in-game is that it is pretty cheap, and it's, for example, as good as its as expensive as its counterpart from the Americans, but it's just straight out better, as it has a higher rate of fire, and that makes this thing quite the beast. It has more range than its counterpart from the Soviets, and also more firepower there, rate of fire. So the Feldhaubitze 155 and its British counterpart, the L121, are really, really good weapons for their price. They can put a lot of damage down range. You want to be careful with them with counterfire, but now that you can quickly load and unload bigger groups, you can even use full batteries and fire and load and then move, making these guns really, really strong to use at the moment, as for their price they give you a lot of firepower downrange. The extra rate of fire also means that the second shell lands on target quicker, so moving away out of the fire is not as easy for the enemy, so these guys rake up more kills than your usual artillery gun, and that is making them quite nice. So yeah, this is number 5, the Feldhaubitze 155. Let's move on. And on slot number 4, we have the TOS-1 Buratino, one of the most recognizable units in WARNO, and a favorite of most Soviet players, and really hated by a lot of NATO 10v10 players for sure, as this vehicle was based on the Red Army's need for a short-range launcher for thermobaric rockets, and it does that job quite well, coming into service in 1988, in real life being used in Afghanistan all the way up to the war in Ukraine, where it still sees use with its really, really scary rockets up to this date. And in game, it's a really heavy punch as well. Everything that it hits is taking a lot of damage. Most units that are within the circle of death gonna die, but it's also really expensive. It has a really long reload time, so the Buratino is not without weaknesses. You need to hit with it, and its range obviously not the greatest as well, so you need to be a bit careful from where you launch it. It might get hit. Its 10 frontal armor at least will leave it to survive a bit of damage as well, but 79th and Berliner Gruppierung currently profiting from it. 79th most likely gonna lose it in the next rework, so then it's only gonna be the Berliner Gruppierung who has this unit, and it's a really scary unit. We for sure will see more divisions with it in the future, like at least 1-2, as it is a super modern weapon for the time period. We won't see super many of those, but I would say a couple more we will see, and I'm looking forward to using them in Army General as well. Really scary unit, TOS-1 Buratino. The cost efficiency, keeping it on slot 4 though. Let's move on to slot number 3. And on slot number 3, we have the AMX L1, which is a French howitzer designed in the 1970s, being brought into service in 1980, and it's a really strong unit in-game and in real life. being unique for its autoloader that gives it quite rapid fire after the first shot is fired, leaving the enemy little time to get out of the way. And that was helpful IRL as well when the French used them in Bosnia-Herzegovina. They also saw combat in the Iran-Iraq war as they were used by the Iraqis. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia have some of these howitzers as well. And it's a really powerful unit thanks to that autoloader. It's pretty cheap in-game. It's only 210 points, so on the lower end of the self-propelled howitzer situation. Its frontal armor and so on, all not that meaningful, but with its shells coming out so quickly, they land on target quite quickly as well, and that in quick succession, and that leads to them getting more kills than other howitzers because the enemy just has so little time to get out of the way. And yeah, that really makes the AMX-01 quite a unique and quite a strong artillery piece. Only issue is that you often don't want to go into a massive artillery spam game in the division that has it, but if you want to do it, and I like to do it sometimes, the AMX-01 is a fantastic little artillery piece. I'm pretty certain we will see it a couple more times once we get more French divisions in the game, and it's for sure a really fun unit to use. Absolutely like it. And yeah, let's move on to slot number 2. Let's see what's coming up. As on slot number 2, we have one of the most iconic artillery units in the world, as we have the Mehrfachkettenwerfer BM-21, East German version of the BM-21 Crud, as this one is the napalm version. The BM-21 Crud obviously being used all around the world since it came into service in 1963, has an insanely long list of operating nations. Obviously all of the Eastern Bloc did use it at the time, but it has been shipped basically all over Africa, South America, a lot of nations using it as well, a lot of Asian nations from India over Thailand, Vietnam, all using it as well. And it's still in service up to this date, even with the Russian army. So it is for sure a really solid package of how to get rockets towards your opponents. And this one has a really good payload with those. The napalm rockets, really scary. There was a good couple of times where this was used for cheese. It still can be used for cheese in 10v10. The napalm, really, really scary. And the longer range over the Buratino is really helpful in that regard. It's a bit cheaper as well. It has a bit shorter reload time, and that makes this a really solid unit, helping out KDA at the moment quite nicely, as KDA obviously still not the best division, but this unit is a nice gimmick for it, and it's for sure quite scary to be on the receiving end of this. And once we get more of these in Army General and Co., we will see a lot of usage there as well. Yeah, the rockets do their job, and they put the ground on fire. Everything in there takes damage. You can make the enemy move with these. If you want to conquer a position, you can hit enemy FOBs, you can hit enemy supply lines. Like, they really create a zone of death and still deal a good damage against anything that is in there. So, yeah, a really, really strong unit here. A really, really iconic unit as well. So, let's move on to number 1. What is better than this unit? Well, we will figure it out in a moment. Spot number 1 goes to the 2S3M1 Akatsiya, based on one of the Soviet Union's workhorses of self-propelled artillery pieces. As the Akatsiya here comes as its most modern version in the time period, the M1 version, which brings in new technology to allow it to fire laser-guided projectiles, especially the OF-38 Krasnopol, allowing it to get really, really accurate. In-game, this is really symbolized, especially once you get into the range of your recon units. This thing is basically pinpoint, and it's the only unit with this feature currently represented in WARNO. We for sure will get more in the future, as there are NATO counterparts that were in time frame as well, which we're most likely gonna see eventually, but for now it's the only one, and its pinpoint accuracy is so scary. As the first couple of shells, especially if you have 2 of these out, landing on the enemy really delete them immediately. It's so good at destroying enemy ATGM positions, enemy AA pieces that might be a bit too close to the front line. And it can also deal a lot of damage to tanks and so on if it gets on target. The Akatsuya, for sure, a really strong unit for the 27th, which is obviously the modern, the Type 90 division of the Soviets with all the modern tools, soon the BMP-3 as well. So this is one really strong unit. I absolutely enjoy using it. I absolutely despise playing against it because you have to be constantly moving. Its pinpoint accuracy are a bit of a weakness there as well, because if the enemy is moving, they move out of the circle quite quickly. But as long as you get anything standing down, you can hit it really, really hard, really quickly, and that makes the M1 model here of the Akatsuya a fantastic unit, and absolutely my number 1 here. But once more, let me know down below what is your favorite artillery piece. As I said, we will move on now to logistics for the last of the top 5 videos of my top 5, and then I also will start the vote at that time for what is your top 5 of the community, and then we will do videos about that. So see you all there, guys. Bye bye and have a great day.